2009. 22-year-old Braden Fuchsa is enjoying summer on his own. He's just moved out of his parents' house into an apartment in the college town of Lawrence, Kansas.
Braden was really dead set that he wanted to be out on his own. He had the opportunity to move in with an individual that he went to school with. They had found him an apartment, and they were going to move in together.
It was a big deal for me for him to leave home, but he wanted to be independent, which we encourage. I mean, you have to let him go at some point.
Braden still sees his parents often, visiting them at home in Olathe, just 20 miles east of Lawrence.
He'd come over to eat and he'd come over to get leftovers. Todd likes to grill, and so that was Braden's big thing, was to grill, and he would come over and they would trade cooking secrets and recipes.
Braden also stops by regularly on his way to and from work. He's a security guard at a large outdoor retailer in Olathe, not far from his parents' house.
He said his dream job would be to work at Bass Pro so he could be around the fishing rods and the guns and everything.
When he's not at work, Braden spends almost all his time doing outdoor activities.
Braden, from the get-go, enjoyed the outdoors. We boated, we skied and tubed and wakeboard. Every free moment that we had, we were fishing. He was an outdoors person, 100%.
He's been camping since he can remember, since he was a toddler.
What is that?
Cash.
Did you catch him?
He loved to fish, and he loved to hunt.
Braden has an especially strong affinity for mountains, which was apparent on a family trip to Colorado in 2007.
He had more fun that week. He was constantly, oh, let's stop and do this, and let's stop. You know, we were hiking, and I mean, he was just beside himself.
In mid-July 2009, Braden's parents are out of town for a couple days. When they get back home Wednesday the 15th, Starla contacts Braden.
I text him because he knew we had been out of town and told him that we were home, we had made it okay.
Starla exchanges several texts with her son. She tells him that she and Todd have plans to see a film that night.
I told him I hated to cut our time short, but I had to go because the movie was going to start, and I'd talk to him later.
Starla and Todd spend the evening relaxing at the movies. But when they get home, they notice something odd.
Todd had gotten on the computer and was looking, and he said, Braden transferred some money.
It's not a big deal. It's usually one of the type of situations where Braden or a daughter would call and say, I'm short on money, I don't get paid till Friday, can you float me some money? And it happened all the time.
But this time, the amount that Braden has transferred is much higher than usual.
It was $800. Usually we're talking $300–400. Just enough to pay his portion of the rent or insurance being due or something like that. I made a phone call to him and got his voicemail, left him a message just asking him, what's up, were you in trouble, and you got enough money.
Starla and Todd go to bed feeling curious, but not overly worried about the transfer. They figure their son will give them an explanation in the morning. But the next day, Braden doesn't call.
Thursday came around, still hadn't heard from him, and it wasn't like Braden. Starla and him were very close. They text back and forth daily.
Then, another day passes without word from Braden. His parents spend the rest of the week searching for him, making a routine of calling regularly and driving by his apartment and work to look for him.
We didn't know what was going on. We just bound and determined we were going to keep up the ritual of, going to his hangout and try to find him.
Although Braden's parents are very worried, they don't call the police, wanting to respect their son's newfound independence. But they do reach out to his friends, including his ex-girlfriend, Elena Ryan. The young couple dated for almost 4 years, breaking up only a year and a half earlier.
I spoke with Starla and told her that I had seen Braden at a gas station in town. But it was a very brief interaction, just kind of a hi, how you doing sort of thing. He didn't seem overly eager to talk to me. And because he had been trying to pursue a reconciliation prior to that, that seems a little strange.
Elena's encounter with Braden is only hours before Starla's last text with her son on Wednesday, July 15th. His parents' concern grows.
I mean, you can imagine the worry. We were both a wreck.
It's been 4 full days since Starla and Todd have heard from their son. They're at a loss as to what to do next when they have a sudden suspicion.
For some reason, on Sunday morning, we got up and it was just one of those feelings.
In our master bedroom closet, there's a shelf in there.
We kept a 9mm in the closet for protection. Our granddaughter had been there 2 weeks before, and I had put it up high in the closet so that she could not get it. So I had just seen it the week before when I'd went and checked on it.
So I seen the gun case there up on the shelf, and I don't know why I did it, but I just grabbed a hold of the gun case itself. It was empty. And my heart just sank.
Only family members know where the gun is kept. Todd and Starla are sure that Braden has taken it.
The gun was gone, and we become very nervous, and Todd said, we're gonna file a police report now.
The search for Braden takes on a new urgency. Where did he go? And why does he need a gun?
It's the worst feeling in the world. Our stomachs just dropped.
Coming up, Braden's parents are prevented from filing a missing persons report for their son.
Our emotions were extremely high at that point. We didn't know what else to do.
22-year-old son Braden in 4 days, despite repeatedly trying to contact him. But the alarms really go off when a handgun goes missing from their home.
The minute we discovered the gun was missing, we went straight to the police.
But at the Olathe Police Department, the Fuchses are not permitted to file a missing persons report for Braden because he is over 21 and no longer living at home.
Our problem was he was an adult. He's still our child, but they don't see it that way.
They actually told us since he was living in Lawrence with a roommate, the roommate would need to be the one that submitted the report.
And it was kind of frustrating because our emotions were extremely high at that point. We didn't know what else to do.
Just in conversation, I mentioned that, well, he's got my pistol. That changed the whole subject. They automatically took our report and filed it.
Braden's parents give police a detailed description of their son, his vehicle, and the handgun. Detective Kenton Thompson is put on the case.
I reviewed the report that we had this missing 22-year-old man, and that he basically had just disappeared. We've got the handgun gone from his parents' house, so obviously now we've got this concern of what's that about.
As Detective Thompson begins his investigation, Braden's parents go home and wait. But they can't stop thinking about the gun.
You don't know if he was gonna hurt himself, if something went wrong and he was protecting himself, if something had happened to him and somebody was after him. You just don't know.
Braden's parents are confident that their son is an experienced gun user.
He's been using a gun since he was big enough to walk. He was hunting by the time he was 5.
But they also know that the gun that Braden took from their house is not meant for hunting.
A lot of police carry 9mm. It's more for target shooting, and it's more of a protection gun than anything.
Braden's former girlfriend, Elena, is mystified as well.
Braden had his own guns. He had his own handgun. I know he had one in Lawrence. Why would he take his dad's handgun instead of his own?
Looking for information, Braden's parents try calling the last people to have contact with their son.
Braden's cell phone was part of our account, so I had access to his records.
And we took like the last 20 numbers and he texts them.
You know, this is Braden's dad. Haven't seen Braden in a little while. Can you please call me?
At first, no one responds, but slowly, calls start coming in, including one from Braden's roommate.
He called, and him and I visited a little bit, and he did not know where Braden had gone.
But his roommate does know something else.
We found out that on Wednesday, Braden grabbed his bag and told his roommate that he was coming over to Olathe to spend the night with Todd and I, with his parents.
But Braden's parents were home on Wednesday night, and Braden never showed up.
To say that he was coming to our house was nothing big, and the roommate wouldn't have checked it out. We wouldn't have thought anything about it.
Given Braden's lie, his parents tried to pin down their son's actual movements.
We knew he had been at our house at some time because the gun was missing. We have the neighbors across the street, and we went over and asked them if they had seen Braden, and they said yes, they had seen him at the house that morning and said he was there about 15 minutes or so. He had pulled in, waved to him, you know, hollered hi, went into the house, and come back out and waved to him again and got in his car and left. So that was about 10:30, 10:40.
It was later that same day that Starla last texted with Braden. His cell phone bill indicates that Braden didn't call or text anyone else after that point.
I had talked to him at 2:30, so that kind of gave us a timeline of what he was doing.
As Braden's parents try to put all the pieces together, another clue surfaces. Todd receives a call from Megan Loach, who, unknown to his parents, is Braden's new girlfriend.
I met Braden at a party in Lawrence at the end of May 2009. Braden is really funny. He's the center of anything. Everybody who was at the party was there for Braden. Everybody knew Braden, and he made me laugh. I instantly liked Braden, and I think he instantly liked me.
Megan and Braden have only been dating for 2 months, but she feels close enough to him that she is disturbed by his behavior the last time they meet, the night before he disappears.
He spent the night at my house. We made dinner and we were hanging out. Braden was just really upset and just not his normal self. Braden's really outgoing and he's always making people laugh, and it was weird to see him just worried. He just looked worried.
The next morning, Wednesday, the day he disappears, Braden leaves abruptly.
I think it was about mid-morning. Braden got up and left, and he usually doesn't leave without saying goodbye or something, or he usually hangs around. And then I had heard a car start in the parking lot. So I looked out my window and he was pulling out. So I texted him and said no goodbye or not saying goodbye anymore or something. Braden just texted me back and said, "Goodbye, Megan." That was it. That was the last time I had talked to him.
4 days later, no one, including his parents, has heard from Braden. And the next phone call sends the Fuchsas even deeper down the rabbit hole.
Later that afternoon, we got a phone call from the police department. They had located his vehicle in Douglas, Wyoming area.
Coming up, Braden has been hiding a dark secret from his family.
We would never have suspected that something like this was going on, ever. It was almost like a Twilight Zone moment.
In 2009, Braden Fuchsa leaves his home in Lawrence, Kansas. His whereabouts are completely unknown by his friends and family. Then, 4 days later, police report that his vehicle has been found in Wyoming.
What is in Wyoming? He knew no one in Wyoming, and why is he going that direction? What was causing him to go there? We were just a little dumbfounded, to be honest. There was a lot going through our minds.
Wyoming Highway Patrol found the vehicle as an abandoned vehicle. They did a check on it at 10:44 a.m. on Thursday, July 16th. There's no one around it. Now, at that point, Braden had not been reported missing, so they left because they had no other information available to them.
3 days later, on Sunday, July 19th, Braden's parents file the missing persons report. It's only then that Braden's information is entered into the National Crime Information Center database and made available to authorities across the country.
We got what's called a delayed entry hit off of that tag, which told us that back on the 16th, that tag was run by the Wyoming Highway Patrol.
Braden's parents tell the police that as far as they are aware, their son doesn't know anyone in Wyoming, nor has he ever been there. The development in the case makes them very uneasy.
I mean, there's just so many missing pieces to this whole thing. The more information that kept coming up, the more confused we got, and it was just so out of character.
Looking for answers, Detective Thompson contacts many of the same people that Braden's parents have spoken to. He agrees that something seems very wrong.
I work a lot of juvenile cases, and typically the first people I talk to is their girlfriend or their boyfriend and their best friend. Those two people. If anyone's going to have information, you usually have some idea of what has happened. And in this case, his roommate was his best friend, and he has no information. And Megan was completely surprised by it also.
Braden's former longtime girlfriend, Elena, isn't surprised that he didn't confide in anyone.
From my perspective, Braden didn't have a lot of close friends. He was a sweet guy, but he was very quiet. I don't know if I would call him shy, but he was just very quiet and didn't put himself out there.
But Braden's new girlfriend has a differing account of his character.
Braden was a very outgoing person. I'm kind of shy, so Braden definitely had to be more outgoing to get me kind of out of my shell. It's weird hearing about someone that you were so close to in a situation that you never expected. It started to become more like I never really knew Braden.
As Detective Thompson struggles to get some insight into Braden's actions, a possible motive emerges. Braden is facing potential prison time on a theft charge.
The theft charge resulted from Braden stealing some cash from his employer. It was a felony level theft, which means in Kansas it was over $1,000.
Braden's parents were not told of their son's arrest when they filed the missing persons report. When police call to notify them, they're stunned.
We were very shocked. He'd never been in trouble ever. I don't know if he'd ever even had a speeding ticket. He was not that kind of kid.
Braden is a straight, go-forward kid. And when he was in trouble, his mom usually knew about it. He would confess. So, just anything to happen like that was just, it didn't happen with Braden.
But as Braden's parents think back to their son's behavior, the recent transfer from their account, as well as some earlier events, they begin to recognize signs of his growing money problems.
Towards the midsummer time frame, Bass Pro had cut his department to a limited amount of hours, and it left him with 8 hours for the entire week.
Still, Braden manages to keep his true financial state under wraps.
Braden reinforced us that he had enough side jobs that he was getting by.
But in reality, Braden's financial troubles are quickly catching up with him.
His roommate told me in June, Braden was late getting his share of the rent to him. He didn't think a whole lot about that at the time. But then in July, he was late again and like a week late.
As Braden's parents later learn, their son is so desperate for money that a week before he disappears, he dips into the till at work and gets caught.
Braden worked in security at Bass Pro. So his job was transferring money back and forth at closing time, putting stuff in the safe. The way we understand is they were closing up. Braden had taken money from the registers to the lockup spot. They confronted Braden when he come into work the next day. Braden said, yeah, it's back at my apartment. They brought in the police, talked to him a while. He confessed everything, and that police actually took him back to Lawrence to pick up the money. It's my understanding that he returned nearly all of the money. I don't think quite all of it, but nearly all of the money.
Despite his cooperation with the law, Braden is immediately taken into custody.
After that initial report was made and he was arrested, he was taken directly to the Johnson County Adult Detention Center.
Braden spends the night in jail. He is released the next day, but according to Braden's roommate, the harrowing experience of being locked up stays with him.
Braden was, quote, pretty freaked out about having spent a night in jail. Being arrested, for him was a pretty major life event and was distressing for him.
Braden was scared. I think when he got arrested, they had exaggerated how much trouble he was in, and I think that Braden he's never been in trouble before, and he was just really frightened by that, and he thought he was going to go to jail for, a couple of years.
Braden is due in court for a preliminary hearing on July 16th, but as the date approaches, Braden appears to set a plan in motion.
When he left his apartment on the 15th, he told his roommate, I'm gonna go spend the night with my parents in Olathe, okay? That was Wednesday night, he had court the next day. Well, that is actually when he left.
When his case is called the next morning, Braden's car is already 2 states away, in Wyoming. Braden is nowhere to be found. All signs point to his being a fugitive from the law, but no one saw it coming.
We would never have suspected that something like this was going on, ever, because we've always had such an open relationship with our kids. It was almost like a Twilight Zone moment. It's like, what is this? I don't understand.
From his conversations with friends and family, Detective Thompson paints a portrait of what he believes to be Braden's last days in Kansas. A young man, ashamed of his crime and extremely afraid of getting a harsh sentence, panics and flees.
I believe his perception of it was that it was going to be much more serious for him than it probably would have been. This was the lowest level that would qualify as a felony theft. He didn't have any criminal history, so this would not have been a potentially serious sentence. It wasn't going to involve a prison term or anything like that. If he truly understood the likely outcome, perhaps he would not have been so distraught about the arrest.
Myself, my wife, the detective have all called and left voicemails on his phone saying that come back, hit your court date. This is not as bad as you think.
While there now seems to be strong motive for Braden's sudden bolt from Kansas, his exact whereabouts are still a mystery. Is Braden running from the law and carrying a handgun? Or has something much worse happened to him? Coming up, as more details come to light, investigators make a devastating discovery.
We only missed having some contact with him by an hour or maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
For a felony-level theft, Braden Fuchsa flees his home state of Kansas. On the day he is due in court for a preliminary hearing, his car turns up 700 miles away in Wyoming. But Braden is nowhere to be found. As the details of Braden's case emerge, the investigation focuses on the largest piece of evidence, Braden's car.
When the Highway Patrol found the vehicle, Braden was not present.
And then we got a call that they had went ahead and opened it. Nothing looked suspicious in it whatsoever.
The Wyoming Highway Patrol tows the vehicle to Douglas, a small town just north of where it was found. Braden's parents make the long drive to pick it up themselves.
Starla and I left early Friday morning and drove the entire route to Douglas.
I think the drive to get there was about 13 hours. It was a very long drive. You're very anxious because you're scared of what you're going to find once you get there. It was a very emotional trip.
As Braden's parents make their way to Douglas, they retrace the journey they believe their son made 10 days earlier.
From Cheyenne north to Douglas, the population is hardly any. You go through some very small towns along the way. The houses are far and few between. It's got the hills and very pretty country.
As they drive through the changing landscape, they look for physical cues that would indicate why Braden chose this direction.
We don't really understand why that area, even though it's absolutely beautiful. There were the plains there, it's just gorgeous, but that's not what he's always wanted. I mean, he's always wanted the mountains. So the area that we found the car, it just doesn't coincide with what we know that he wanted.
It's late at night by the time the Fuchses arrive in Douglas. The next morning, they go directly to the tow yard to pick up Braden's car.
This is something that's kind of bothered me. There was a key code on the door, a lock, and Braden always used that. He always stuck his keys under the floor mat. That was his habit, and I looked under the floor mat and the keys were there. That just, in my eyes, tells me he locked his vehicle and walked away.
As Starla and Todd continue to look through their son's belongings, the more convinced they are that Braden willingly left his car behind.
The clothes looked like he had went through the bag, kind of trying to sort out what he was going to take and what he wasn't going to take.
Because Braden has so recently moved out of his parents' home, Starla and Todd have a good idea of what items he might be carrying with him.
His cell phone was missing and he took his wallet. The boots were gone. There was a pair of jeans, so that tells me that he had one pair of jeans, the pair he was wearing, the boots, maybe a couple t-shirts, and the gun was missing.
But why Braden abandoned his car baffles detectives. Was he trying to throw off police, or did he leave his car by the side of the highway in the hopes that it would be found?
I quite honestly just cannot make sense of that. I don't know why he would abandon that vehicle that way where he did, because you certainly know it's going to be found. I mean, that's probably the easiest place to find a vehicle. You leave alongside the interstate, you know the highway patrol is going to come by and stop and check on it.
Upon their return to Kansas, the Fuchses hand over to the Olathe police several items they found in the car. One of them leads Detective Thompson to a key witness.
It was a receipt from a tire repair place out of Wheatland, Wyoming. That receipt indicated that he had purchased a used tire, and of course it had the company's name and phone number on it.
Detective Thompson calls the garage and is able to speak with the mechanic who saw Braden.
I was woke up from the guy that runs the pit stop Conoco that there was a fellow that came in and had a blown out tire.
Reuben Kaufman is a mechanic in Wheatland, Wyoming. He often gets calls for people who have broken down along Interstate 25, but that day, he would unknowingly help a fugitive.
I got the phone call around 5:30, 6 o'clock. His tire blew out at the Bordeaux exit, south of Wheatland, exit 67. He wanted me to run down there and put another tire on it and come back and pick him up and take him back down there.
Reuben drives down the interstate and finds Braden's car on the side of the road.
The tire had blown out. It was literally shreds. I mean, it looked like it'd blown out at high speed. There was no fixing it. It was just shredded.
Reuben replaces the blown-out tire then returns to the pit stop to pick up Braden and bring him back to his car.
He seemed like a nice, clean-cut man, you know, very nice people person.
As the two men make small talk, Braden shares with Ruben information he has kept from everyone else.
I asked him where he was going. He said he was headed for the university in Billings.
Billings, Montana, is 400 miles directly north of Wheatland.
It made sense because that's the route you would take to go to Billings, is Interstate 25.
But according to Braden's parents, their son wasn't planning on going to school, nor does he know anyone in Montana. Nevertheless, they admit that their son has long been obsessed with the state.
Braden was infatuated with Montana, and Billings would have been where he wanted to go. He at one point had checked into finding out more about the game warden system in Montana. He wanted to be outdoors and in nature. That was his goal.
It was kind of an uncanny obsession, but he was real into John Wayne movies, and so I think he just saw Montana as scarcely populated, lots of nature. He could fish, he could hunt, he could do all the things that he loved. And that was the place to do it, I guess.
Slowly, a theory begins to take shape. Braden, running from the law, decides to disappear and start a new life in Montana. When Wyoming authorities examine the area, the theory gains strength.
From where the vehicle was found, along northbound I-25 south of Douglas, at some point on up the road is a truck stop.
You know, it was a very short walk to the rest stop. And with Braden's personality, he could walk up to somebody and strike a conversation in a heartbeat and wouldn't have a problem talking his way for a trip further up the road.
The search for Braden is now broadened to include Montana and beyond.
Well, we did contact the chief of the police department for the university there in Billings, and then we also contacted Billings, Montana City Police Department. We made a poster, we distributed it along that known route, in other words, Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and even into Canada.
Detective Thompson is also able to create a more exact picture of Braden's flight out of Kansas.
My belief would be that he just drove through the night on the 15th. From kind of the time frame that Ruben has given me, he had the blown tire approximately 10 miles south of Wheatland. He got back on the road with the vehicle fixed somewhere around 8 o'clock, continued northbound on I-25.
Oddly, Braden then abandons the car less than an hour's drive north of where he got the flat. Shortly after that, the Wyoming Highway Patrol comes across the vehicle.
You know, the frustrating thing there is that, you know, we only missed having some contact with him by an hour or maybe an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half at the most, between when he left the vehicle and the time that Wyoming trooper stopped to check on it initially.
An hour earlier, and Braden might have been intercepted. Instead, his absence is going on 2 weeks. Disappointingly, the expanded search for Braden does not produce results.
Even though we tried to get information distributed as widely as we could, there was just no further leads and no contact.
Braden has been missing for 6 months. Suddenly, there's movement in the case.
I came in my office one morning and had a voicemail from a woman who works at the Salvation Army in Cheyenne, Wyoming. She told me she was 100% certain that she saw Braden.
Coming up, new hope that Braden is on his way home.
He said it was a long way back to Kansas.
In Kansas, a missing person poster in Cheyenne, Wyoming generates an exciting tip. Linda Curl works at a Salvation Army soup kitchen, where she sees many down-and-out transients. She is certain that Braden was one of them.
We put bread out for the homeless or the low income or whoever needs it. And this particular day, we'd had a lot of bread, so we told him, take as many as you can use. It wouldn't fit in his pocket, so he was sticking it under his arms and trying to hold 3 or 4 loaves instead of just 1 or 2. And he said it was a long way back to Kansas, so he would take it.
It was kind of exciting to hear. If you had been in the Douglas area or on north past Douglas, you know, that would be your way back.
Convinced this could be more than coincidence, Detective Thompson contacts Braden's parents. The bread story strikes a chord.
My heart just dropped because Braden loved bread. He loves Italian. It was terrible because you try to make the bread and he was stealing it all the time. You know, I mean, he would eat it before we even had it toasted.
The news fills the Fuchsas with fresh hope that Braden is on his way home. But just as quickly as the excitement builds, it begins to dissipate.
Cheyenne police looked at various places where some of their homeless people stay, and obviously watching the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army employees obviously are now very aware to be on the lookout for him. There was just no further sighting, no further indication that he was there.
Detective Thompson begins to doubt the sighting, as it's based solely on the poster.
She sees a missing person poster for Braden, and she says, that is the guy that was in here last week and had lunch. But it can be very difficult for someone to make that identification. This person was in last week, and now I'm seeing the poster this week.
But Linda remains steadfast in her conviction that it was Braden whom she saw.
I was absolutely sure it was the same person that had been here because of his eyes and his smile. He didn't look wore out and tired like a lot of our people do. He had a very nice, bright smile, very pleasant, extremely polite. He didn't look like any of our regular people. He didn't look like a homeless person.
But the trail comes to a grinding halt in Cheyenne. In the coming weeks and then months, there are no more sightings of Braden. As time goes by, Braden's loved ones begin to consider a darker theory.
Initially, I wanted to think that he just needed to get out of town for a little while, gather his thoughts, and needed some space. But the more time that went by and no one had heard from him, I was worried he may have ended his life. My biggest fear is that he just couldn't cope with all of the stresses that he had and needed a way out, and that was his way out.
For Detective Thompson, the idea that Braden wanted to end his life is just one more theory that doesn't add up.
We still don't know what his main motivation was for fleeing. But if your objective is to harm yourself, you certainly don't have to drive 10 hours to do that.
"11 months have passed since Braden's disappearance. Frustrated by the lack of new clues in the case, authorities organize a comprehensive search of the area where Braden's vehicle was abandoned.
Three things we want to be looking for: eyeglasses, the necklace, and the watch.
Oh, there was a watch?
Yeah,
And
possibly a handgun.
Searchers scour the land surrounding the highway where Braden's car was found. Family and friends privately fear what they might uncover.
I think at this point, out there, they would probably be looking for a body. It's kind of in the back of everyone's heads, I think. I'm just the only one who has ever said it.
After 2 days, the searchers do not find anything. But seeing Wyoming firsthand, Detective Thompson wonders if Braden might still be out there, living under the radar.
Perhaps he just wanted to start over. Perhaps this criminal charge was just more than he could deal with. Maybe he's just continued to run from that. If that's the case, he's pretty good at it, because he certainly left no trail after Wyoming.
There's a lot of young men that move out here. I was one of them. You know, there's something about the lifestyle out here that appealed to me, and it attracts a lot of young men from all over.
But experience also makes it difficult for Detective Thompson to believe that Braden could go so long without surfacing somewhere.
It's hard for an adult to just, you know, drop out. Because eventually you have to get a job, you have to make some money, you can find a place to live, typically, that sort of thing. And those are things that generate a trail. And, you know, to just completely disconnect from your family and your friends and not reach out to them at all, it would be very difficult to do. If he's a fugitive, he's the darndest one I've looked for in a long time.
Braden's loved ones continue to hope that Braden is alive and living in the great western wilderness he always dreamed of.
In our hearts, we believe he's still there. I think he's a little bit more than confused. I think it's more humiliated, very, very upset with himself that he disappointed himself and maybe us.
Typically, he has not been.
Like with the thing with Jason, I really did care for him. I'm pretty sure that I don't know if it was true love, but I know I was in love with him at one point because I did marry him. Was it ideal? No, absolutely not. But I do think that things were getting dangerous at that point, because he had threatened to kill me and whatever man I was messing with.
October 14th, I came downstairs and my mom said, "Did you hear them gunshots?" And I said, "Yeah, it sounded like a 22 going off."
I started rambling. "You need to help me. Something's happened to my ex-boyfriend."
Doesn't look like Chris's apartment at all. It's all disheveled.
His car was his baby. He would have never put his car at the park and ride.
On the passenger seat was a Post-it note.
Wherever those directions went, that was the last place Christopher was.
Hi, Kelly.
Hey.
Hi. I thought these people are definitely involved in the disappearance of Chris Reagan.
My marriage is falling apart. I'm gonna guess that I'm probably the jailer's husband.
When was the last time you saw Chris?
I want to say probably 2 weeks ago.
You saw him or talked to him or?
I talked to him, I think.
I think they walked out of there thinking we might have a problem. And what I have, Kelly, is I have a search warrant. I got a phone call from one of the neighbors saying the Cochrans packed up their vehicle and they were gone. And I thought, if that's not guilt, I don't know what is.
The phone rang. It was the FBI, and I find out that Jason Cochran had turned up dead. Kelly Cochran covered her tracks by killing her husband. On February 20th, 2016, Kelly Cochran's husband, Jason, died in his parents' home in Hobart, Indiana, of a suspected heroin overdose or cardiac event. He was only 37 years old at this time. Kelly called 911 and told dispatch that she had found Jason Cochran unresponsive in their bed.
My husband, his face is like blue. He's breathing barely. I don't know what's wrong. He's throwing up. He's sweating. I need an ambulance right away.
Later that day, she posted about her husband's death on Facebook. Then, 2 days later, on February 22nd, 2016, the FBI let me know that over the weekend they had received an anonymous tip stating that it was possible that Kelly Cochran had killed her husband, Jason Cochran. I remembered what my partner, Steve Howe, had said to me. They were suspects in a missing person case from the UP. The next thing you know, the supervisor calls me in the office and says, "I'm going to assign this case to you." I had just recently come back to work after about 5.5 months trying to heal up from a serious dog bite I incurred during a search. My immediate response was no. I just wanted to ride a desk for a little bit and take a little bit of a break. My supervisor says, "No, it's your case." So I called Chief Rizzo and said, "My name's Jeremy Ogden. I'm an investigator with the Hobart Police Department. You may be shocked to know that Jason Cochran was dead."
As soon as I was told that Jason was dead, I wondered how Kelly killed him. I knew she did.
I said, I need every report that's ever been written in this case with your missing person, Chris Reagan. Every search warrant that's ever been written in this case and all the evidence that's collected, I need to be able to see it all. I want it sent to me. Within probably 20 minutes, I started getting emails. It was just one case report after another. And I remember I just sat there and kept hitting print. By the time I left, I had a nice hefty stack. I was up till 4 a.m. reading all of the case files, and I thought, this is pretty good. You know, there's a lot here, and I was impressed. Laura's secretary had sent a box full of DVDs, so then it was hours of watching all these interrogations. Going through all of the search warrants that Laura had done, her documentation, her organization, her research is incredible. That night I called Laura and I said, look, you're 100% right. These people did this. And she hear this sigh like of relief because she finally feels validation, I think. And she needed it.
Out of all the investigators I had worked with, instantly I knew that he was on the same page as me. With him, it was question after question after question. He was in another state, but he wanted to know everything about the case and what I had put together here. I knew the case was in good hands.
The first thing I did was I called the coroner's office. They had him scheduled for a visual autopsy only. From the moment I told them that this was a suspicious death and that we needed to do a full autopsy, there was never another question. It was, we're doing a full autopsy, this is what time, be here. I watched from beginning to end. I noticed all the signs of strangulation, suffocation. It was very evident to me right out of the gate. They would cut the body open and actually examine all the organs and remove the brain and look at the sinus cavities and all those things that are telltale signs of true trauma. After that, I went to the Cochran residence so that I could try to speak with Kelly. Just so happens Kelly was walking out of the house right when I was driving up the driveway. And I said, I'm Jeremy Ogden. I'm an investigator with the Hobart Police Department, and I'm here to investigate the untimely death of your husband. And she says, well, that doesn't make any sense. I said, people don't generally just die at 37 years old, so we have to look into things a little bit. And she said, you're not here to talk to me about anything else? And I said, no. And she said, you're really not here to talk to me about anything else. I said, look, lady, this is kind of making me think that we should be talking about something else. But I'm here to investigate the death of your husband. Do you think we could go inside this home? I'd really like to take a look and photograph the bedroom in which Jason died in. And she said, well, it's very dirty, and I'm kind of embarrassed for you to even look in it. And I said, well, I've been in some really bad places before. I think we'll be all right. And the minute I stepped into the bedroom, I thought, this is the most immaculate room I've been in. There's not a thing out of place. It was just her way to try to keep us out of there. And so that begins, it begins right then. I knew that I needed to get Kelly into an interview room. And when I finally did bring her in the room, I wanted to hear what she claimed occurred because I knew that I would somehow prove later that that isn't what happened.
You're not going to talk to me now?
And now suddenly, Kelly just sat there looking at me.
He's frustrated this whole thing.
How do you think I feel?
I don't know.
Well, you probably should know. You're the one who's been giving me the runaround.
And she said, if you want me to have any respect for you at all, you'll just say it like it is.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, so can we get it done?
I said, so here's the deal. I know that you and Jason had something to do with the disappearance of Chris Reagan. I said, by the time this is all over with, you will tell me. I said, but you can go. My partner, Steve, is in the viewing room, and Steve's texting me, why are you letting her go? And I said, this is by design. She has to re-engage with me in order for this to continue. You have to trust me. she's gonna call me in the next 20 minutes. It was right at 20 minutes or so when my phone rang, and it was her. Wanted to know when our next meeting would be.
Do you think that's the way you went the last time you went there? Can you remember that?
I don't know if I would have came up from 189.
I think.
If Laura hadn't sent me all those interrogations, I would have never been able to develop the plan that I did. You have to devise a plan to get them to talk to you, build rapport. This is a dance. It's back and forth, nice and easy. It was really important for it to be that way because she is deploying tactics on me just as much as I am on her. You know, this is the chess match of all chess matches. Let's see who's gonna win. Now, I knew I had her attention after that first meeting. So I set up another meeting at a burger joint. I knew she killed Jason, but my first priority was to find out what happened to Chris.
Thank you for meeting me. Sorry.
As soon as she walked through the door, I stood up and I gave her a hug.
I thought your hair was shorter.
Of course, I don't enjoy hugging somebody I know that murdered somebody, but it's necessary in order to get through and build a rapport with somebody like this. I told her, I believe you have answers. The family deserves closure.
Think about it, Chris. You have the ability to bring him home. And that's all I want you to help me do. And I know you can, and you can bring his family closure, and you can bring yourself closure for the rest of your life. I mean, you really want to live the rest of your life wondering when they're going to come get you? Because that's what's going to happen.
My attorney told me I'm stupid for talking to you guys.
I told her, I'm not concerned about the prosecution of you in Michigan. My only goal here is that, Chris Reagan served his country for 20 years and he deserves to be brought home to his children. They deserve to bury him.
Say hi to Cameron.
Come on over. Go sailing.
Those boys didn't have a dad to call up and say, hey, can I borrow $50? Sorry. I have to think about something else for a second. The most important thing is recovering Chris Reagan. Kelly, she doesn't take it right away or anything like that, but it's in her head. She's thinking about it. And
Call me.
I will.
and out the door she goes. I just continued with the open line of communication with her. I mean, there's sometimes she was texting me at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. Random stuff. Constantly trying to lead me in a different direction to investigate something that has nothing to do with this. These are all tactics. And I'm thinking, you're never gonna get anywhere. I wanted to try to reach out to any resource that I possibly could. The day after Jason Cochran's death, the FBI received an anonymous tip that it was possible that Jason Cochran had been murdered. So I called the FBI back. And my question was, how anonymous is anonymous? And the FBI said he was a friend of Jason Cochran's, and that was Walt Ammerman.
I can't recall the year that I met Jason and Kelly, but I know that I met them playing a Facebook game called Battle Pirates. I would say Jason and I were pretty good friends. We had fun no matter what we did. We had fun at their house, we had fun at my house, we had fun at the lake. Just seemed like these are nice people. I personally didn't have red flags of Jason and Kelly. My wife, on the other hand, was the exact opposite, never did trust Kelly from day one. February of 16, I was in contact with Jason on the internet on Friday night, the 19th. And Saturday afternoon, Kelly sent me a text casually and said, by the way, Jason died last night. I didn't think 37-year-old should just die on a Saturday morning. Right away, my wife said she probably killed him.
I called Walt Ammerman, and I said, we have to meet in person. How far are you from the Hobart Police Department? He's like, I'm about 2 hours and 40 minutes. I said, would you be willing to drive to me? And he asked me, why do you want to meet with me? And I said, because I need to know that I can trust you. And he said, okay. My initial meeting of him, you know, sizing him up right out of the gate, a great, wholesome, wonderful human being. I said, you know, I brought you here because I wanted to know if I could trust you. It took me about 30 seconds to decide I can trust you. I said, so here's the deal. I need you to be an informant for me, and I need you to stay in constant contact. And Walt's like, okay.
Phew.
That night, I sat there thinking, how do you get Kelly to give up any information at all?
You're the one who's been giving me the runaround. And you know it.
I think it goes both ways.
Somebody has to speak from the dead. And then I thought about Walt and how Walt could be the person to deliver the message that I needed.
I literally am listening to Jeremy with this idea, and I thought, this is never gonna work.
I looked at it and I thought, this can work. We get in his truck and I give him an earbud and the recorder. I said, all right, I said, let's practice. I want you to read through the script. I want you to get comfortable with it. This has to be natural, Walt. You say it in your own words. It's gotta come from you, the way you would do it. And I don't care how you do it. She just gotta believe you. He said, but wait a minute. Can't call him Jason. I said, what do you mean? He's gotta be Quack Quack. I always called him Quack Quack.
I used my game name, which was Drock, that he always said when he entered the game, left the game, called on the phone, sent a text, Quack Quack.
And he's like, I'm really nervous. And I said, I know you are. I said, but you know what? I think everything's on our side. Let's just do this.
Hey, can I call you back in about a half hour?
I guess you could if you had to, but this is...
Oh, no.
Well,
What's up?
you know, we met at Chili's a couple times.
Yeah.
Like back in December we met, and this has really been bugging me, but Jason asked me for my address, and, you know, no big deal, I gave it to him. And I got a letter like January 4th or 5th or something like that from him. And inside is a note from him and another letter. The note says, Drock, if something were to happen to me, please send this in a few weeks. Do not open it. Thanks, Quack Quack. And there's an envelope in there with no return address to the Iron River Police Department. So, I mean, it's been 3 weeks and it's been bugging me. I haven't been talking about it, but it's like I'm supposed to mail this, but I just wanted to tell you.
Please don't.
I don't know how not to. I mean, all I can picture is his mom saying I was his best friend and he did this to me. You know, he mailed me this. So, I really just wanted to tell you, I don't know what to do about it. I haven't been sleeping good, but I don't know.
Yeah, do what you gotta do.
I mean, I just wanted to tell you, you know, he hasn't ever asked me to do anything, but...
You're serious?
I can't hear you.
I said you're serious? You're not fucking with me?
I'm not fucking with you. I really gotta go. I don't know what to do.
No, do whatever you ask.
All right.
Take care.
Bye. And she said, please don't.
As soon as I heard Kelly sigh and say, please don't send it, the hair stood up on my arms. And I was like, oh my God, we got her, and she fell for it.
The Walt Ammerman letter phone call It changed everything. It changed the entire dynamic of my communication with Kelly. And it made her wonder exactly what was Jason going to reveal in this letter about what really happened. It gave her urgency to develop a story about what happened to Chris Reagan, how it happened, who did what, so that she could try to play this role of victim that basically I'd put her in. On March 14, 2016, a couple days after Waltz called Kelly about the letter, it all started to come together just like I planned. It was like 7:30 in the morning, and my phone started blowing up, and it was her. She told me about the letter. I told her that everything was going to come to light, and that I was going to have to call Iron River to find out if they received this letter. I played it up, and I said, look, you need to get out in front of this. If you don't get out in front of this, I'm going to tell you right now that there's no telling what this letter says, what it puts you doing. And she didn't know what to say to that. That knocked her off balance a little bit and put her on the defensive. I didn't continually have to pursue her. I needed to let her re-engage and be the one to come back to me. And she did that. She had to change course and try to redirect. That's where the mistakes start happening. So I started on a regular basis surveilling Kelly. And one day I watched her and she went to Fred Rose Park in Hobart. I laid down in the grass and was just watching with binoculars. And she sat down on this fallen log, and it was next to a stump. So I thought, what's important about this area? I went in there and I looked at this tree, and I don't know why. I can't tell you at all why, but I thought I'm going to carve Chris's here in the tree. And maybe it'll generate further conversation. After I did it, a few days went by. I pulled up just in time to see her running from the woods. Ultimately, Chris is here rattled her, because that's when she started calling and texting me more. You know, I have to meet you now. You need to come to the park. And she was playing right into my hands. So during this time, I would send Laura information. She'd send me information.
When I first started working with Jeremy, of course, it was a lot of phone calls, emails, going over the case.
She had my respect right out of the gate. You know, I really admired her for going the extra mile like she had done.
We spent a lot of time talking, hours and hours and hours. I didn't even know what he looked like. And I've always been able to, work with men professionally. I've never had, romantic feelings for people I've worked with. That's never happened. And eventually we started talking about our family a little bit. He was going through a divorce, and we were talking about all those things, our kids.
She trusted me enough eventually where she talked about her frustrations. She talked about how it had affected her personal life. And one day, I get a text that says,
"Do you want to kiss me?"
I thought, she must have accidentally sent this to me and she meant it for somebody else,
I can't believe it. I can't believe I sent that text.
I waited a while before I said anything, as I was waiting for a text to come to say, sorry, that wasn't meant for you, or...
There was a really long pause, and I thought, oh no.
But that sorry, this wasn't meant for you never came. And so I just responded yes.
I kept thinking, I don't even know what this guy looks like, and all I know is I totally have fallen in love with who he is.
The first time Laura and I met in person was actually a trip for this case. I had never been to the UP. I called Laura up and I'm like, look, I want to come and I want to meet with you, and I want to be taken to every scene so that when I'm in the interview room with Kelly, I can say, well, did you go right down this road or did you go left?
So when we eventually did meet up, I remember seeing him for the first time and thinking he was handsome. But we were working, we were on duty, so we couldn't show it.
Laura took me all over, showed me all of the different locations. It wasn't much of a first date, but we did go to dinner, and we did have that first kiss.
We didn't want anything to cause any interference with what we were doing. We didn't want to look unprofessional. So we made sure that we were doing that on off time in a location that nobody would know who we were. And that's kind of how we carried it out for a while.
From the very beginning, Kelly's plan was not to give any information, not to talk about any of this. But then the letter came. I mean, the Walt Ammerman letter phone call was the pivotal moment in the case.
Please don't.
The next thing you know, I get a text message from Kelly that says, I really need you to meet. I'm not sure how much longer I can wait. I asked her if she would meet me at a restaurant in downtown Hobart.
She's there already. No need for anything. I'll just turn it on and let it record.
Does it have the internal mic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you should be able to just turn it on, put it in your pocket, and...
Great.
Thank you, sir.
I went in, I selected the table, I arrived early.
Thanks.
I had surveillance units in the parking lot watching.
You don't want anything to eat? You sure? I'll buy you dinner. You sure?
You could tell that she was in like a different state than she had been in most of the interviews. There was less control on her side. She seemed more vulnerable. You know, I had already made up my mind. I knew what she was capable of. And I really wasn't sure yet how she felt about me. And towards the end of the conversation, she says, if you tell me what happened to Jason, I'll tell you what happened to Chris Reagan. She was now negotiating with me. And it was to validate whether or not I truly knew what I was doing as an investigator, if I could tell her what really happened to Jason. And then she would exchange a truth with me. And I looked at her and I said, he was given 3 times the lethal dose of heroin. But they didn't want to let him die from the heroin. They wanted to suffocate him.
He suffocated to death.
Because that's what he died from.
Without a doubt. And you're the only one who's in the room with him.
And she just kind of played it off a little bit with me, continued to talk, didn't acknowledge it. So I walked her out thinking she's going to get in the truck and leave.
All right, well, call me, okay? You need to call me. Let's get through this.
And she got in the truck and she rolled down the window and she looked at me and she said,
Jason? He shot me.
Jason shot Chris. And I was like, yes, this is the first time anybody's ever been told that Chris Reagan's dead.
What did he do after he shot him?
He got rid of him.
Where'd he put him?
Got rid of the bag.
What did he do with the body?
Gone.
She says, Chris Reagan, Jason killed him. He forced me to do all these things. I had no other choice. And he is the vicious, malicious control freak. She decided right now I'm going to grab on to being the victim. And she has to try to keep that up. And that's pretty hard to do.
Come on. Come on, leave your truck here. Come get in the truck with me.
I said, you're going to take me and show me where he is. And she jumped in the truck with me. And I said, it's about 6.5 hours drive to Michigan's Upper Peninsula. And we're going to leave right now. We take off. And here she is in the front seat with me. And probably about, 10, 15 minutes into it, she was sound asleep. And she slept like a baby the whole way there. Hours and hours and hours of driving. I text Laura, and she's on the phone at 10:30 at night, calling people, getting everybody arranged for the next day for searches.
I'll never forget the night that he called and told me they were on their way. I was just beyond excited. They arrived at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was ready.
Sun's coming up, it's a beautiful day, and as we're coming into town, she tells me to turn off of Route 2 onto 239 Pintoga Trail. She's like, he's right there. I said, how far? 20 yards. I told Laura and everybody to come on down the road that she had marked the spot. They got out and they started to do their thing, marking off grids.
We pull up to this location where she says it's, right in here. And I looked at the area and I said, there's no way.
Where at from here, Kelly?
Through that trail.
How far? How far?
40, 50 foot.
The area she was pointing out was the trees were very sparse. There's no way that you're gonna stop your car and get out and put somebody's remains in the woods. You definitely would have been seen. In the meantime, I still had the FBI evidence response team heading up from Detroit. I had cadaver dogs coming up from Flint.
Where to now? Right out where?
Right where you're walking.
And Kelly's just grinning away because she knows we're never gonna find anything there.
She's just eating it all up because she's the architect of all this chaos. Everyone's doing exactly what she wants them to do in this moment. She led us on a wild goose chase when she put us out at that location.
Right up here?
No. Keep going straight. Where those two birch trees are.
I wanted to show her that she couldn't get away with lying to me. And so I said, all right, you want to play a game? Let's go back to the house and do a reenactment. I want you to show me what you did to him and how this occurred.
Kelly tells me that she and her lover, Chris Regan, entered the house on the night of October 14th, 2014.
When you'd come in, we were talking and...
Where's he standing?
Right next to me, we were talking.
Up close?
Yeah.
This way?
We were messing around right here.
You guys were messing around?
We didn't make it upstairs.
You were having sex right here? Okay.
And we were getting ready to go up the stairs and that was it.
What happened?
With Kelly, it's about her feeling as though she's in control. But I knew how to put her on her heels.
Well, I'm Chris, so we're standing here, we're fooling around, right? And then you decide to go up the stairs?
We're going into this house.
Okay.
I don't like being this close to a murderer. I don't like touching evil. But I have to be this close and invade her personal space to take her off of her game so she makes a mistake.
How are we walking? You and I together. How
I
are
think
we
I
walking?
I think he walked first because I had to close up the door.
Okay, so he walks first. Step. Right? And you're where? Get in position. Okay. So he's standing right here. And you're right there. And you're telling me that Jason shot him from behind? Where's Jason? And then what happens?
He fell and tumbled on the stairs.
She says, we started to walk up into the kitchen. He was in front of me and he shot from behind and falls backwards. And I call her out. I'm like, generally when somebody's shot from behind, they don't fall backwards, they fall forwards. All the momentum's going forward, you would fall forward. She's like, well, I don't know. He fell backwards onto me. We tumbled down the stairs. I end up at the bottom of the stairs with him. He's shot in the head. There's blood on me.
What's Jason say to you?
Nothing. I just looked at him.
I was standing there listening to her pretend to have empathy for the man that she murdered. It was sickening, but I couldn't show it.
What do you guys do with Chris at that time?
Everything he says, I can take care of it.
Jason decides he's going to dismember him in the basement. And, you know, the next time she goes down in the basement, Chris's hands are cut off.
You said to me earlier that Jason wanted to do more. What does that mean?
So he could be identified.
So he couldn't be identified? And what did he tell you that he was going to do?
Leave out the parts that could be identified.
Not put him with his body, with the rest of his body. So he was going to take his fingers and his skull and put it elsewhere?
She ends up telling me that, you know, he's downsized into 15 garbage bags or so.
and that they disposed of the garbage bags in the woods, that she spent all night cleaning everything up, helping Jason get rid of the car, taking it back to the park and ride.
Whose idea was it to put the car where it was? So then you get in the pickup truck, he gets in Chris's car, and you guys take it over to the park and ride and you leave it there. And then the both of you come back in the pickup truck. You drive back home, or does he drive home?
I drive.
Okay.
She admitted to being present when Jason killed him. I was there when Jason killed him. And I was scared for my life, so I did what he wanted me to do in order to help him.
What's that? I don't have any other questions for you. Anything else you want to tell me?
I just like taking you back home. I'd been up for a day and a half at this point, at least. I was very tired, so we had a lot of conversation in that 6.5-hour ride home. And at one point, she claims that there's a trophy bag of Jason's, a purple Crown Royal bag filled with a collection of items she says Jason took off of his victims' bodies.
They're all Jason's, of course, because she's still the victim. And she claims that she can produce this at some point.
When we get back to Indiana, I continue to interrogate her.
What's up?
First off,
What's that mean?
first off,
How many times have we been in here? It's just normal. When are you gonna be straightforward with me?
We met time after time, but I wasn't making the progress that I would like. She was playing a lot of games.
You like playing chess, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, that's what this is. It's like a continual chess game between you and I, because you just want me to like get a little bitty piece of the puzzle and then move with it.
You good at chess?
Nope. I focus more on other things. So,
Like what?
this right here.
In the weeks after the trip to Iron River, I think that she really enjoyed this game between her and I think she viewed me as a worthy adversary, and that's why it continued. But her time was running out.
Okay. Your name is Colton Daniel Gwynn? Okay.
On April 22nd, 2016, Kelly's brother Colton came in to talk with me. He called me and told me that he wanted to meet up and tell me something.
You know me because you were put in contact with me by Chief Laura Frizzell from the Iron River Police Department, correct? Correct.
Laura had developed Colton as a source of information in the case. I think Colton is a genuine guy who feels horrible about what his sister's done.
What's been going on? What's the deal? It was between 2012, 2013. I know it was wintertime because she wanted to borrow my snow pants and she was getting a sled. She had been talking with the guy for quite some time on Facebook. She said he was from Minnesota, and I specifically remember his name being Jason. And I remember that because when we were talking about it, she was like, yeah, I know, his name's Jason. Well, at least I won't get it confused. And she was going to go up to Wisconsin, you know, get a hotel and meet him and everything. They met, and they still talked for a bit, and then next thing I know, it completely turned to where she was saying, you know, she's done with him, he won't leave her alone, keeps calling her, texting her. Then while he was still trying to contact her and she wanted nothing to do with him, she finally confessed to Jason about seeing the guy. And Jason said to her, well, I'll kill him if you want. In your presence? In my presence. After looking online, there's a guy that was shot and killed in Minnesota. I can't remember the town. His name is Jason Reuter.
During that conversation, he identified Jason Reuter as a possible victim of Jason and Kelly's.
Jason Reuter? Yes. R-U-T-E-R. The picture on the site, it definitely resembled the guy that she was with. I can't tell you 100% that's the guy, but right now I'm about 90-95% sure.
I had no reason not to believe Colton. I mean, Colton was cooperating with the entire investigation. He had continually tried to bring anything forward that he could to help with the investigation. As soon as Colton shared the information with me about Jason Reuter, I called Hastings, Minnesota Police Department and asked to be put in contact with whoever was in charge of the investigation. I gave the investigator up there the bare bones of what had been going on.
In a subsequent interview with Kelly, Jeremy decides to pull a picture that he had printed of Jason Reuter.
You don't know this guy?
But something about her disposition changes at that point. She has a strange reaction to the picture.
I don't want to answer any questions about him.
Why would you not want to answer any questions about him?
I just don't.
For what reason?
He was supposed to have a meeting with her the following day, which would have been April 27th of 2016. But that meeting never happened.
Later that day, the toxicology comes back. The coroner comes, pulls up the pictures of the autopsy, and ultimately, my hunch was correct. The results of the autopsy were asphyxiation, strangulation. I said, "What is your ruling?" And he goes, "Homicide." And I said, "Okay, now we have it. We have enough to charge her with Jason's murder." He died in his bed and she was the only one there. But the next thing you know, I get a text from her, says the West Coast looks good this morning. And I called dispatch and I said, "All right, we got a runner." I texted her back and said, I didn't realize it was going to be like this. And she said, I said, "Game on."
A horrifying crime that so frightens everyone involved will leave you reeling.
It was terrifying.
A murder so bloody, so savage.
You're right. That's not real. That's fake. That's made for TV. But this wasn't made for TV.
Shocks and paralyzes a safe haven.
The bodies were found in close proximity to each other.
They had been bludgeoned to death.
She had pretty much been decapitated.
Who died and who did it?
People started calling our office, asking what was going on.
Was it a colleague? An ex-lover? Your own flesh and blood?
It was so hard to process. The lies, the secrets.
The desperate hunt for the killer unravels a tangled web of deceit.
I'm not really trying to hide myself. They have a police video. You can see the face of the driver? Yes, were you there?
Exposing gambling debts.
His very way of life is being threatened.
Rage.
He had his enemies. Definitely.
And infidelity.
It was unbelievable.
All bets are off in a deadly game of secrets and lies.
So many lies.
I would never have expected so many and such huge secrets.
Discover the deadly deceptions, lies, and murder.
I just couldn't believe it.
A secret to die for. Pleasanton, California is the centerpiece of beautiful Alameda County in the San Francisco Bay Area and one of the wealthiest towns in America. It's known for its great lifestyle, fancy restaurants, and exclusive golf clubs.
The town of Pleasanton is a picturesque, old-timey town. When you walk down the main street, it's just like taking a step back 40, 50, 60 years.
And everybody knows everybody.
The schools were excellent. The crime rate was very low. Just a great place to bring up a family if you could afford it.
60-year-old Ernie Shearer Jr. and his 57-year-old wife Charlene are living the all-American dream.
My parents were well off. My dad, he was an accountant. He had a really keen eye for real estate.
Ernie made his fortune through his real estate investments.
My mom was a hard worker.
Charlene was a professor.
She taught accounting.
Ernie and Charlene have two grown children, 29-year-old Ernest Shearer III, who goes by Skip, and 25-year-old Catherine.
Their childhoods were wonderful.
As a family, we traveled every year. We had a really good life. My dad was just super invested in us children, both of us kids. He coached my soccer team, my basketball team, and he was always coaching Skip's teams. As soon as school got out, we spent 3 weeks doing something. We went to Australia for 3 weeks, we went to the Caribbean for 3 weeks, we went to Italy and Greece for 3 weeks.
They were pretty privileged growing up.
I got married straight out of high school. I was 19 years old and moved to Utah. Myself and my husband had 2 kids at the time.
Skip went to BYU,
the Mormon college, and he got a degree in finance.
After college, my brother worked for a company and they needed an economist. And so he was a forecaster for them. We lived in neighboring cities. We would have game nights. We did that until after his son was born.
Soon after, Skip and his wife Robin moved to California, while Catherine lives in Utah with her family and Skip lives in Los Angeles with his. They're still close with their parents.
My dad would fly down and see Skip's son and his wife Robin, and my mother would fly to Utah and come see me and my family.
The Shearers look like the perfect tight-knit family, but there are long-standing tensions under the surface.
Ernie liked to gamble.
He got together with a bunch of friends and they played poker together.
Years earlier, Ernie's love of poker rubbed off on Skip, who looked up to his father and tried to emulate him.
Skip and Ernie both loved to gamble. They both loved poker. They both loved money. Skip was really good at math, so he took to blackjack pretty darn quickly, and he was good at it, really good. He was able to use numbers and use his intelligence, not just luck. He knew how to count the cards.
It seems that gambling is a family legacy that Charlene is very sad to see passed down to her son.
His mother, as a very devout Mormon, was very against it.
In the past, gambling almost destroyed Charlene and Ernie's marriage, and she didn't want the same for her son.
My mother really struggled with my dad's poker playing. She really felt like gambling was wrong, and it often caused friction to exist in her marriage. And she did talk to Skip about that. My mother's opinion on the subject really didn't make a difference.
While Charlene learns to live with the men in her life gambling, she doesn't have to like it. She also doesn't like the side of Ernie that emerges when he gambles.
My dad also drank alcohol while he was playing poker, and a lot of times he would get drunk.
His personality caused some issues.
He had been known to flash around money and kind of rub his winnings into the other players' faces.
There's no doubt that Ernie has a competitive side when he's gambling, but it also comes out at other times.
Ernie sat on the San Ramon Valley Unified School Board.
There is a lot of power associated with the board. He wanted to be the head guy, and everybody had to listen to Ernie.
Ernie would get aggressive if he does not get his way.
There was a board member that my dad really thought was just a sucker, and he once at a board meeting took her a lollipop and said, "Here's a sucker for a sucker," and handed it to her.
He couldn't get along with other school members, and the public started to get tired of all the bickering.
Ernie was ousted from the school board in a very public and humiliating way.
He was really upset.
And he was a thorn in their side since that day.
As Ernie plans to fight another round with the school board, his son Skip has big plans of his own that shock his family.
He dropped a bombshell on Robin. He decided that he was going to leave his 9-to-5 job and said, "I'm going to become a professional gambler."
My brother was an economist. From everything that he was showing her, it looked like it made more sense for him to become a professional player.
Robin was extremely supportive.
For Skip's mother, Charlene, this decision goes down like a lead balloon.
My mother did not want him to make a life as a gambler. She worried that it would lead to financial ruin.
Skip does have someone important in his corner.
My father, he accepted that my brother had his own choice to make.
When talking about his poker career, his father liked it because his father was still playing poker.
He ultimately looked at Skip as being a chip off the old block.
As his dad says, gambling's only bad if you're a loser. Like Ernie, Skip's a winner, and he plans to prove it.
A career in gambling is fun. It's exciting.
Skip was on the road a lot. For a while, Robin and their son came with him, but Robin didn't really enjoy that. So she stayed home and did the normal, I'm the mom thing.
When Skip began his professional career, he did really well. He was a winner.
And the winning pots were very, very large. I mean, some of them were in excess of $1 million if you won the whole thing.
Skip makes an impressive living in his first year on the pro circuit. And like his father, he has a big personality and likes to flaunt his winnings.
My brother was definitely boastful to the point that it was annoying.
In Vegas, he was living the lavish lifestyle, throwing money around.
He was on top of the world.
Skip bet on a lot of different things. I know at one point he won about $70,000 off of a horse race. He did have a stroke of luck.
Skip's on a winning streak, but he isn't doing it completely on his own.
Skip's friend Tanner was his financial backer.
Tanner was a huge part in bankrolling Skip. Tanner would put the money in for Skip to get into the tournament, whether it be $20,000, $40,000.
Tanner, in return, takes a cut of the earnings.
Tanner would get 40% and Skip would get 60%.
Tanner thought Skip was a great investment because he kept investing in him.
He was winning a lot of money, like $100,000 in a tournament.
Skip is doing so well he can afford to upgrade his life.
Skip tells Robin, hey, let's buy a house.
Robin was thrilled for both Skip and Robin. With a small child, this definitely was their dream home.
The house cost $880,000. Skip was able to put down the 20%.
The problem is Skip's gambling profession is not a safe bet for any lender.
Skip could not qualify for a loan.
Part of the problem when you have irregular income is proving that your income is sufficient to support a house payment. Robin was very upset that they had a difficult time finding a loan.
Skip knows how important the new house is to his wife and will do whatever it takes to make it happen. But Skip's mortgage problems are just the tip of the iceberg.
Skip is keeping a lot of secrets.
Robin had no idea what was going on.
Skip was leading a very dangerous double life.
Skip Shearer and his wife Robin have found the home of their dreams.
They found the perfect house. Skip was able to put $176,000 down.
But nobody would lend him their remaining balance.
Luckily for Skip, there is one last bank he can turn to, the bank of Mum and Dad.
My brother asked for $616,000 to purchase the home.
And that didn't go over well with Charlene.
Charlene is uncomfortable loaning Skip such a large amount of money.
My father knew that my brother had been winning pretty well, and he convinced my mother to help to finance the purchase of the home.
He wanted his son and his grandchild to have a house that they loved. The repayment schedule was $38.50 a month.
I thought my parents were crazy.
Ernie isn't worried. For a high-rolling pro like his son Skip, those monthly payments won't be a problem. And besides, Ernie is used to people close to him owing him money.
Ernie was very generous with his money, but he held people accountable. When they didn't make their payment, he would come to collect.
In one particular instance, there was a man that he had entered into an agreement with.
Stephen Schaefer. He was a friend of Ernie's, and he wanted to buy a condo. He asked Ernie to loan him $125,000.
Ernie provided it, with a catch.
If he missed a payment, Ernie threatened to repossess the condo. It's never a good idea to loan money to family or friends, especially in the amounts that Ernie was loaning out.
Flush with his father's cash, Skip, Robin and their 3-year-old son move into their new home.
It was in a gorgeous neighborhood.
It was 2 stories, several bedrooms upstairs with a nice living room, kitchen, family room, and 2-car garage.
Their dream home comes with a big price tag, and Skip needs to make serious money to pay for it.
You have to win more than lose if you're going to make ends meet and pay your bills.
Skip was under a huge amount of pressure.
With big new debts, Skip needs cash and fast. So he contacts his sponsor, Tanner Skadden.
Tanner told him that there were a lot of tournaments and that he would front the entry fee money.
A lot of them were about $10,000 to enter.
Skip was spending a considerable amount more time in Vegas than he was at home. Robin assumed that Skip was doing well in Vegas.
Skip plays the part of the devoted family man, but when he sets foot in Sin City, he becomes a different person. A person that his family wouldn't recognise.
Skip was leading a double life, and Las Vegas was at the heart of it.
He wasn't there just to earn a living. He had dalliances.
He had multiple women on the side.
He had a credit card that Robin didn't know about, and he was spending money on other women.
Obviously, he didn't want his wife to find out.
And Skip certainly doesn't want his father knowing about his secretive exploits on the road. For the time being, Ernie is distracted by an old wound that still festers.
One of his buddies told Ernie that the school board were going to hold a public hearing to add a new tax.
My father was really upset. He didn't want his tax dollars going to put trees in instead of going toward books and teaching skills. He was really dedicated and passionate about helping teachers and about helping students.
Ernie has a plan that will undermine his old school board enemies. Meanwhile, his son Skip is living a high-rolling gambler's lifestyle with secrets of his own.
He had lots of open accounts and spent lots of money.
He was partying and playing poker and winning, and he had the girls and the money.
Complicating matters, Skip has become completely smitten with one woman in particular, Adrienne Solomon, a fun-loving, successful event planner.
We met at a craps table. I was in Vegas for the first time. He was starting to flirt a little bit, and so my instinct told me to look down at his ring finger and make sure there was nothing there. And there was not a ring, so I felt comfortable going to dinner with him.
Skip got very serious with Adrian.
I was living in North Carolina, and he was living in California. We tended to meet either where he was playing poker or where I was running events.
They went to football games together, traveled together, and acted like a normal couple.
But Skip somehow never mentions to his new girlfriend that he has a wife and child back in LA.
Adrian thought she was in an exclusive relationship with this man.
Skip was a good boyfriend. We were having a wonderful life in Vegas. We were always getting the best tables and getting to go to the best restaurants and good seats at the best shows.
Adrian falls head over heels for Skip, or at least she's fallen in love with the man Skip pretends to be.
She just thought he was the man of her dreams. He professed his love to her on multiple occasions.
We talked about marriage. We talked about having kids together. He even spoke to my parents about taking things to that next level.
It's amazing the mental capacity to keep all of those secrets straight and all of the lies without having crossover.
Another secret. Skip isn't only cheating on his wife, he's cheating at the gambling tables too. And his luck is about to turn.
We would go to casinos and he would play blackjack and count cards because that's the easiest way to win money.
The casinos frown on counting cards.
One of the casinos on Fremont Street thought he might have been counting cards.
He eventually got tossed out,
depriving Skip of his best, most profitable game.
He could no longer play blackjack, so that had to affect him negatively.
It also impacts his financial sponsor.
Skip was starting to lose a lot of money. Tanner started to pull back and not give him the money for bigger tournaments.
Banned from blackjack, Skip doubles down on different games, taking bigger risks, desperate for money.
Skip was willing to lose $10,000 at a craps table on one sunny afternoon. It was so beyond my comprehension.
Skip was under a lot of pressure from my parents to get the money paid back.
The stress is getting to Skip, but he can't give up his lavish lifestyle, and it seems he'll do anything to keep his family in the dark about the hard truth. He's losing.
He was probably afraid that the house of cards was going to fall because he had a lot to lose. He could lose his house, he could lose his marriage, he could lose his father's approval. His ego was too big.
Skip was desperate for cash, and his world was crumbling around him.
Something was going to have to give.
The cards are stacked against Skip Shearer. He's having a run of bad luck and risks losing it all.
Skip had been counting cards at blackjack, and the casinos have a very strict policy against counting cards at the blackjack table. The downfall came really when he started spending more money than he was making.
He was still gambling like he had no debt at all.
In reality, Skip is very much in the red.
He had the $600,000 he owed his parents. He had a debt to his fiscal sponsor. He had a lot at stake.
For now, Ernie remains blissfully unaware of his son's mounting debts. He's focused on his upcoming battle with an old nemesis.
He went to the school board meetings and just berated people, called them corrupt.
Tension escalates and a fierce disagreement erupts.
He actually got into a physical confrontation with one of the board members. It was a kind of a screaming, yelling match.
And Ernie got in his face and poked him in the chest.
To try to make his point and maybe even try to get to turn more physical.
That was a little bit dramatic, but that was Ernie.
Ernie's making more enemies, and there's a lot of bad blood. To cool off, he leaves town to join Skip on one of his gambling trips to Vegas.
Finally, Skip told me I was going to get to meet his father. I was so excited. We were at Caesar's Casino, and Skip said, "Adrian, this is my father." I put my hand out to shake his hand, and his father said, "I know who she is." And then he left, and Skip said, "So you finally got to meet my father." He didn't even really acknowledge I existed, and I was very upset.
That's the beginning of the end.
I was having some serious, difficult thoughts in my head and worrying about our relationship and what was going on.
Someone else is just as unhappy.
Ernie was very disappointed in Skip because he knew that Skip was stepping out on his wife.
With turmoil in his relationship with Adrian and his father deeply upset, the setbacks just keep piling up for Skip.
He became further in a hole with Tanner.
Skip owes him thousands of dollars.
Skip wasn't paying it back.
For Tanner, that was a huge loss.
But Skip kept stalling.
Unfortunately for Skip, the guy who pays for his poker chips also knows the guy who paid for his home.
Tanner was well aware that Ernie had money and felt it was important for him to notify Ernie that his son was on a bad streak.
Tanner talked to my dad about a debt that my brother had that he was not paying.
Ernie is mortified. Not only is Skip cheating on his wife, he's not paying his debts.
Skip wasn't real happy with the conversation that Tanner had with Ernie. He took it as more that Tanner was kind of snitching on him and trying to get his family involved, so perhaps he could recover his money from Ernie versus Skip.
And my brother was panicked.
He owed his dad the $616,000 and started to fall behind on some of his mortgage payments.
My father was absolutely crushed. This was a big financial burden that they had taken on for my brother.
Skip's money problems are Ernie's money problems.
For Ernie, the timing couldn't be worse. Skip isn't the only one who owes him money. Ernie's poker buddy Stephen can't pay back his condo loan.
Ernie held people accountable. He wasn't going to take it.
The agreement wasn't kept, and so he was set to repossess the condo.
Calling in a loan from an indebted friend is one thing, but for Ernie, dealing with Skip is a family matter.
Ernie and Charlene were not happy. Charlene in particular, because she did not want to loan the money in the first place.
My mother tried to warn my brother about all of the hazards, that gambling is not just an isolated thing. It's a slippery slope of downward decline into a pit of abysmal financial destruction.
Charlene and Ernie called Skip and Robin to ask when they were going to get repaid.
My parents were all up in his business about it.
This was the first that Robin had heard about potential financial trouble. She was very angry.
Skip, a master of persuasion, convinces Robin that everything is fine.
Skip obviously thinks he's just in a small slump and he's just waiting for his recovery to happen.
Robin unfortunately had no idea as far as what money they had in the bank, how he was financing his playing.
Skip was lying to a lot of people. He lied to his parents about his financial situation. He lied to Adrian. He lied to Robin.
Robin was feeling stressed.
Oh, Robin's fears are coming true. Her husband is keeping secrets from her and they can't pay their debts.
Is this the point at which this castle that he built is really a castle made of cards and it's all going to come tumbling down?
That was his own doing because of all the secrets and the lies.
It's trouble in paradise for Skip and Robin. Skip is on a catastrophic losing streak, and Robin knows it could cost them their dream home.
She had started to worry about their financial situation.
Skip had fallen behind on his property taxes, and that would have had them put a lien on his house, which would have complicated things for his father, too.
Robin was constantly hounding him about getting the loan paid off.
It looked like they were going to lose their house.
Feeling the pinch, Skip decides to once again bet on himself.
Unfortunately, when he wasn't doing well, sometimes he would start playing even more.
My brother just always went all in.
Skip told Robin not to worry about it numerous times.
He said he could handle it and he was going back to Vegas.
he was really going to see Adrian.
Skip is torn between two women and he's having a hard time keeping either of them happy.
We were still traveling together and still having fun together. We lived the life of people who were making huge amounts of money, and he had money, but not like that.
When he started spending more money than he had, he stepped across the line.
Skip spends freely to keep his secret girlfriend happy, but Adrian has a new secret of her own.
At that time, I knew that he wasn't the person for me. I knew we were not going to continue our relationship. Skip and I were not going to be together forever. And that was hard for me.
As usual, Skip plays the Iceman. He takes the new reality in his stride, or at least pretends to. The losses may be piling up for Skip, but his dad, Ernie, is on a winning streak.
My dad is frequently the winner.
So there was a lot of boasting.
My dad one night won $9,000 and came home with that cash in his pocket.
He would flash money around.
And his antagonising continues away from the poker table when Ernie schedules a meeting with the former mayor of San Ramon to share his concerning suspicions about the board.
He was going to tell the mayor that there was malfeasance on the board and the board members were corrupt.
With her husband, Ernie, picking fights with the school board and her son, Skip, sliding into financial ruin, Charlene looks forward to a respite from all the doom and gloom, a family vacation.
They were getting ready for a trip.
We were all excited to take this week-long vacation in Hawaii together.
Maybe a relaxing getaway is just what everyone needs. But unfortunately, things are not working out as planned.
The week before we went to Hawaii together, my mom called me while I was working and I couldn't take her call. I tried to call her back, but it went straight to voicemail. During the week that followed, I called her multiple times a day.
She couldn't get a hold of her mother, and that was very unusual because they talked almost daily.
I called my brother and I was like, have you heard from Mom and Dad? What's going on? And he was like, I haven't heard from them, but don't worry about it. It's not important.
She got concerned enough that she called the country club and asked that somebody go and check out the house and see if everything was okay.
An employee heads to the Shearer's home for a wellness check.
They saw the packages outside the door.
Something was very wrong.
When taking a closer look, the country club worker makes a bone-chilling discovery.
They looked in the window and they knew something just absolutely horrible had occurred in there.
It was terrifying.
A grisly scene is discovered inside the home of Ernie and Charlene Shearer.
An employee from the country club, when he looked through the window, he saw a body.
A male deceased on the floor. Immediately he called 911.
In 2008, I was running the Pleasanton Weekly. I walked into the office at about 8 o'clock and my editor said, "There's been a murder." It was shocking.
When police arrive, they make another horrific discovery.
It was a double murder.
The victims were Ernie Shearer and his wife, Charlene. I worked homicide for approximately 10 years. The Shearer case was one of the most gruesome crime scenes I've ever seen in my career.
They had been bludgeoned to death, and Charlene's throat had been cut to the point where she was almost decapitated.
On a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 12.
Ernie and Charlene's daughter, Catherine, can't believe they're gone.
When I learned the details of how they were killed, I just couldn't believe it. It's like watching a TV show where you see something and you're like, that's not real. That's fake. That's made for TV. But this wasn't made for TV. These were my parents. The first call that I made was to my brother.
Skip was in complete shock that his parents had been murdered.
There was just silence on the other end of the phone. And then he said, "What do we do now?" We were overwhelmed with complete loss.
The unspeakable, gruesome tragedy sends shockwaves of horror and disbelief through the family, friends, and community in Pleasanton.
2 people were brutally killed in their house. Husband and wife had been married for 31 years.
The brutality was just unbelievable. We believe the homicide occurred between March 7th in the evening and March 8th, somewhere in the after midnight hours.
Based on the decay of the bodies, they decided that my parents had been dead for about a week.
Police quickly get to work, examining the crime scene for any clues about the killer's identity and any potential motive.
The first thought was that it was a robbery. The house was ransacked.
The tile floor had bloody footprints
made by a size 12 shoe.
Alameda detectives learn Ernie had recently won $9,000 at a local casino and was bragging about it to other patrons. Is it possible someone followed him home afterwards to kill him?
That theory went out the window pretty quickly because they found $9,000 in Ernie's pants pocket. None of Charlene's jewelry was missing.
It definitely very quickly appeared to be a staged crime scene.
Police did notice that there was no forced entry.
It was obviously not a burglary gone wrong. This was personal, and it was gruesome.
Detectives want to know if the Shearers had any personal enemies. Catherine reveals that her father certainly did.
I thought of maybe San Ramon Valley School Board District associates that my dad had upset.
Did someone hate Ernie so much they'd take his life?
Ernie had a lot of enemies, particularly in San Ramon.
Detectives find out that Ernie was scheduled to attend a meeting with an influential politician on the 8th of March to talk about Ernie's allegations of corruption on the board, the morning he and Charlene were likely murdered.
The fact that he did not make this meeting, it was very, very possible that one of these board members, specifically the one that he was pointing his fingers at, could have been so angry they would have killed him. That was a very high possibility on our list.
Police interview several board members and soon realise the theory doesn't make sense.
I don't believe the board was corrupt. I don't think there was any evidence of it.
And all those people, they had alibis where they were.
So who did kill the Shearers? Investigators look into some of Ernie's recent business deals to see if anyone had an axe to grind.
Ernie had a financial transaction with one of his buddies that didn't end well.
Stephen Schaefer owed money to Ernie, like $100,000, but he failed to make payments.
He ultimately lost the entire condo. Ernie took it back from him in foreclosure.
Detectives track Stephen down and question him.
We looked at Stephen as a suspect. We felt he was probably angry because he did lose his money, but that turned out not to be the case at all. He had no ill will towards Ernie. We were able to rule him out because he had a very strong alibi.
As police look into Ernie's other financial entanglements, Skip and Catherine lay their parents to rest.
The funeral service was beautiful, and my brother was a pallbearer.
Right after the funeral, he told Robin that he just needed time by himself to grieve.
The police had asked me if I thought he could do it, and my answer was always no.
When we looked further into Skip's alibi, it was almost impossible to pin him down.
His alibi was that he was in Vegas, drove back to Los Angeles. The next morning, he went to play cards with his grandfather, and his grandfather verified that.
But no one can corroborate that Skip was at home in LA the night before when his parents were murdered.
Police did look at Skip's phone records, and it was showing up as on in Vegas, and it showed up later closer to Los Angeles.
Unfortunately, his phone battery died for 18 hours, and we were unable to track him via his cell phone. There was just a lot of missing time that we couldn't account for.
Those crucial hours fall in the time when Skip's parents were murdered.
We try to dig very deep into Skip's life. There's something going on here with him.
He's hiding a secret lifestyle. What else is he hiding?
Police start unraveling Skip's secrets.
He had a huge thirst for other women. His most serious affair was with Adrienne Solomon.
A detective calls Adrienne with questions about her relationship with Skip.
One of his very first questions was, how long was this affair going on? I said, well, that's a very controversial type of word. I said, we were in an exclusive relationship for 2 years before we broke up. And he said, so you don't know he's married? And I was completely floored.
They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but police want to know if Skip's secret double life could have spiraled out of control and led to his parents' murder.
The amount of secrets, the magnitude of lies is so huge. It's unbelievable.
As Alameda detectives hunt for the killer of Ernie and Charlene Shearer, Skip's secret girlfriend, Adrienne Solomon, is shocked to discover she's been living a life full of lies.
I couldn't believe that I had been in a relationship with someone for 2 years that had such huge secrets, big secrets.
She was quick to let us know that she had no idea that he was married, no idea that he had a son.
Detectives believe Adrienne, but they still need to know her whereabouts at the time of the murder.
She was 2,500 miles away in North Carolina. There was a lot of people that were checked into, and the only suspect that it kept coming back to was Skip.
Investigators get a big break when Castlewood, the country club close to the Shearer residence, hands over security video.
We were able to see a red Camaro go into the neighborhood and then a few hours later leave the neighborhood, and we were able to determine that it was almost exactly the time that we had put the time frame of the murder had occurred.
Skip owned a red Camaro.
The fact that they found footage of a car like his going in and then coming out 4 hours later, he was guilty.
His whole life was crumbling around him. All these lies, they were starting to close in on him at a very, very rapid pace.
Skip's motive becomes crystal clear when police examine Ernie and Charlene's will.
My parents' will stated that once the child turned 30, that they inherited their half of the estate.
But both parents had to be dead.
Their estate was valued at about $4 million.
When the murders occurred in March, Skip was 29 years old. In July, he would have turned 30 and would have been able to get his $2 million.
He did it for money.
Police want to bring Skip in, but he's nowhere to be found.
Robin was saying things like, well, he just left and I don't know.
Skip's wife, when we pointed out a lot of the facts that we had learned so far, realized that he probably had something to do with the homicide.
Angry and upset, Robin agrees to help police.
The police asked her to call Skip and ask him about the red Camaro.
They have a police video with something that looks like your car, and you in it. You can see the face of the driver? Yes, were you there?
Police wanted to get Skip's reaction to that.
Hello? Well, please tell me about the video. I'm here, I'm just thinking. I'm not really trying to hide myself. Did they think you're trying to hide?
As they hunt for Skip, police continue to build their case and discover that on the day of the murders, he made a stop which piques their interest.
Our investigation took us to Primm, Nevada because of Skip's credit card receipts.
Investigators know Skip stopped for food and gas, but they suspect he made another stop at a sports store.
Police went to interview employees. One of them did remember someone buying a baseball bat, size 12 shoes, and goalie gloves. The purchase had been made pretty close to the time that Skip would have been purchasing the gas and the fast food.
It was a cash sale, but the clerk actually remembered Skip buying those items.
Authorities suspect Skip used the baseball bat to bludgeon his parents, and that he bought those specific shoes to place footprints at the scene.
Skip does not wear a size 12 shoe.
We determined that he literally bought a shoe size 3 sizes bigger than his to throw us off.
After buying the shoes and bat, Skip continued the long drive to his parents' home.
When my brothers showed up on their doorstep, they were probably terribly surprised.
His parents were in bed or getting ready for bed.
The evidence led me to believe that Ernest and Skip were having a conversation. The discussion obviously got out of hand.
And then things went terribly wrong.
I think Skip beat his father to death with a heavy object, most likely a baseball bat. And as this beating was going on, Charlene heard the commotion. Suffered what they call defensive wounds too, where she obviously put up her hands to stop Skip from assaulting her.
I can't imagine the betrayal, the feeling of betrayal that they felt when their son started attacking them.
Ernest's body, obviously, it was bloody. He suffered a severe beating.
Charlene was almost decapitated.
The murder weapon, we believe it was a sword that was kept in the house. Ernest had like a collection of swords that he would get in various countries, and one of them was missing.
This was a horrific, awful, brutal crime. Murder. It was a murder. His secrets and lies literally destroyed his family. He wanted the money, he wanted the house, he wanted the family. He wanted the girlfriends. He wanted the big, fancy gambler's lifestyle in Vegas. And he had to do what he had to do to get that.
The ugly truth is finally laid bare. Skip kept on doubling down until he got so far in the hole that he chose to murder his loving parents for money.
Skip's secrets and deception abandoned me, killed my parents. My brother knew when I called him and he said, "Don't worry about it," when I couldn't reach my parents. He knew that they weren't alive. He knew that I didn't need to worry about it because they were gone. And he just didn't care.
After 11 months on the run, Skip has finally played his last losing hand. He's arrested and charged with his parents' murder.
I want to advise you have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? Yes.
The entire case was built on Skip's secrets and lies. There's just no other way to put it.
On May the 20th, 2011, Ernest Skip Shearer III is sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without parole for the murder of his parents.
At the end of the day, everybody has to pay the price for the lies that they tell. And this is his price.
This story is tragic.
It's so devastating to think of how many lives his secrets and lies destroyed.
Most of all, I grieve for my children not knowing these great people. I tell them a lot of stories. They are missing out on such amazing people. They were real people who had real lives and real value. And there was so much loss that was just taken from them. So brutally, so cruelly, without thought or care. Sorry. I can only hope that my parents are able to somehow understand how much we miss them and how much we love them.